Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. This is part 2 of my January 2018 wrap-up. I read The Mothers by Britt Bennett. This is about two young girls, essentially, one named Nadia and one named Aubrey. This story deals entirely with a secret and how people individually deal with a secret and how a community deals with a secret. And I don't know if the secret is said in the synopsis, so I don't know if I should tell you. So it just says, the secret that results from a romance that Nadia has with the son of the local pastor, and the subsequent cover-up will have an impact that goes far beyond their youth. So it doesn't tell you what the secret is, so I'm not going to tell you what the secret is. But I loved the writing in this book, and overall I kept wanting to come back with it whenever I was taking a break. I wanted to be back in the story, but there were a lot of issues that I had with this book. I didn't like that Nadia and Aubrey were kind of like complete opposites. One was all really good, and the other one was kind of the one that was the bad girl and the one making all the mistakes and lying. And I didn't like that sort of stark difference. There was a little bit of complexity added and a little bit of the goodness taken away at like one point from Aubrey, which was interesting, but it wasn't ever really explored. There were some topics that she just kind of touched on very briefly and then kept going, whereas I feel like honestly this book could have been a lot longer and a lot of more topics explored. This book really showed me how much I hate church culture, honestly. Like small town church culture where so much of the focus is on the church and the church knows everything about you and it has so much power. That I don't like that. It makes me so uncomfortable, and it did while I was reading this. The mothers are supposed to act as like, what are the are they called muses, the ones in Hercules that tell the story?
Yeah, I think those are the muses.
So the mothers are supposed to be women from church who are supposed to act like the muses telling the story. I didn't really like that. I didn't enjoy it as much as the actual the actual part of the story told from the perspective of our three main characters, Aubrey, Nadia, and then the pastor's son, Luke. I felt like a lot of what was said for them could have been done through their story without those chapters in there. And again, I mean, that could totally be my own bias about the fact that I hate that way of thinking, that old schooly churchy way of thinking, because it was definitely prevalent in those chapters and in their narration. But if you don't mind that as much as I do, then you will probably enjoy it more than I did. I still really enjoyed it, and I think it discussed a lot of important topics, such as the way communities are made and broken apart, the way that secrets can destroy people's lives. It can both unite and take people apart. It explores friendship and the relationships between parents and their kids, the impact that church has in families. So there's a lot being explored in a very short book, and I think it does so relatively well. There are just some particular things that I didn't like about it.
I thought the cover was really pretty.
The cover is really pretty.
There you go. That's my
that's Lewis's 2 cents.
That's my 2 cents about her video.
Then I read Giant Days volumes 1 and 2 and really loved them. These are really approachable, really entertaining stories about 3 friends who are going to college, and I definitely recommend it. Their personalities are all very different and very funny, but they mesh together really well. And there's a character who likes other girls, so that's always a good thing. Yay. Then I read for Joss's book club, which I will link all the information down below, and you should definitely join if you want to read more diversely, read own voices books and things like that. That is the goal of her book club, so I will link everything down below. I read The Roundhouse by Louise Erdrich, and this is a story told from the perspective of it's from the perspective of an older man looking back on his 13-year-old self during the time after his mother is raped. So it's about how the community takes it, how his mother handles the situation that has happened to her, and it within the story that it's telling, it talks a lot about the way that the United States treats Native Americans, how their politics have been affected by our laws, how they really have little to no say over their jurisdictions, what go on within their reservations, how they were forced into reservations, and it does all of that without beating you over the head with it, which I think was done beautifully. I loved the story, and I loved the fact that it was told from the perspective of the boy, because what we get there is the family and the community's take on what has happened. And I think what she was trying to do with that is make us see how them as men, but also us as a community, have to deal with rape culture, rape in general as a crime, how we handle it, how we treat rapists, how we treat victims, how we must believe them, and how really something has to change. And I think she does that really well by having the narrator be the young boy. I loved the story as a whole, and I definitely recommend it, especially if you're looking for own voices in Native reads. I did find that sometimes she would veer off a little bit, and then hence my own concentration would veer off, and I would kind of lose interest a little bit in the story. Whereas I felt if the writing would have been a little bit more honed in and focused on the story itself, I would have gotten through it a little faster and would have enjoyed myself a little bit more, because sometimes I felt like I would kind of veer off into different things. I will link everything down below, like I said. Last two books that I read were Giovannis Room by James Baldwin. This book, oh my gosh, it's just so short, but it does so much in so little time. It's about this young man named Michael, and how he moves to Paris, meets this actually I think he's older, this man named Giovanni, how they begin a love affair and the consequences thereafter. And I really won't tell you much more about it because it's so short, but James Baldwin has such beautiful, eloquent, emotive writing. I absolutely adore it with my entire being, and in such a short amount of time he is able to discuss really what it means to find yourself, and what does that mean, how you can affect other people in your journey, how that means that really what you're doing is trying to finally face everything that you've tried to hide from your own self. Like, is that really finding yourself? Like, what does that mean? He explores that really well. He explores sexuality, the fluidity of it, finding it, what the repercussions of that can have. There are some discussions about gender politics and how women are perceived, the oppression of women, and like all of that in so little time. Read it, it is beautiful, it is amazing. Last but not least is The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. And this is about a young girl who lives in the forests of Russia. She is the granddaughter of a woman who had some magical abilities. We are never really told what those are. That's never really explained in detail. And that's kind of what I enjoyed about this, is that you're sort of thrown into the story, and then through the story you kind of get the bits and pieces of what this sort of magic system is and what her abilities mean. And essentially it's a lot of nature-based magic, and there are these nature beings that she's able to see, protectors of houses, horses, the forests, the rivers, and she's able to see them and communicate with them, and unknowingly she helps her community to thrive by her relationship with these beings. Then there are these two ultimate beings, and they're twin brothers, and one is less good. One is I wouldn't really say that one is good and one is bad. I would say one is more bad than the other. They're both ruthless in their own way, and they both rule over this world, at least. I'm not sure, I don't know. And you're never really told whether it is over the whole world or just this world and this community. One is, I guess, one is more bad than the other. One is more ruthless than the other, and he is referred to as the bear, and he has been held captive for all of these years and is now broken free. And it is about how our young girl Vasya, what her role is in all of this. How can she save her community? How can she save her family, her town, and all of the creatures that she has grown to love so much. It's a beautiful story. It's very atmospheric. It really completely grips you, and again, in a very short amount of time is able to tell a beautiful story. It never really felt rushed for me. It was, if anything, a slow burning sort of story, which is really the kind of story that I'm learning to love and appreciate in a way that I never did before. I loved the characters. I hated with all of my passion some of the characters, which to me really just shows good writing. If I am able to have such strong feelings about characters, then I really think the author did something right. Beautiful. I can't wait to get into the second book. I think I'm gonna like it just as much as the first, if the reviews that I've been hearing are any indication. And the only issues that I had with this was there is some drastic age differences in some of the relationships, and there's a lot of child hitting, which I felt uncomfortable reading about. But the story overall and the magic found within these pages, I did enjoy, and I missed whenever I wasn't reading it. So I recommend it. I do recommend it if you love fantasy. If you are a young adult fantasy lover wanting to branch out into more adult fantasy, then I would recommend this one. Because if you're looking for something to kind of be your bridge between the two worlds, then I would recommend this one. Those were the books that I read in the month of January. Let me know what you think about any of these books. If you read them, let me know what you read in the month of January. As always, thank you for watching and for listening. Down in the description bar are all my social media if you would like to be friends with me there as well. I love you guys.